So I want to go back to one of the things a lot for me and hopefully for our listeners and viewers, because I want to know how to phrase the about 8 minutes into our podcast. You asked you
Ask the
gave a phrase
patient.
how we ask the patient. Will you repeat that one more time?
Okay, now this is just how I ask, okay? So
Yeah,
it's,
right. But it but
right?
it gives us a good
Yeah.
idea. Yeah.
And okay, yeah, and it's just kind of a so um the typical scenario is someone's very depressed and is in a deep depression or has experienced a crisis in their life. So typically what I'll say is something like, oftentimes, when patients are in a situation like yours, when they're very, very depressed or they've had a crisis like you've had, they have thoughts of suicide or thoughts of hurting themselves. It's very common. Have you had any thoughts like that?
Very powerful. Thank you so much.
A lot of people are like, they're so afraid of the answer that they start with, "Well, you're not suicidal, are you?" Or, "Oh, you're not having suicidal thoughts, are you?" Because they really want the patient to say no. Please say no, because if you say
Oh,
yes, I really don't know what to do with the answer.
right.
So, if you really want to know the answer, and you only really want to know the answer if you know what to do with the answer. So that's the other piece, right? You need to ask in such a way that the patient feels confident that you can handle the answer, you
Yeah,
know?
and I don't think that normally we would address it like that. So it's kind of
Mhm.
you ask more of a would it be an open-ended question maybe or
Right.
yeah,
Well,
right.
kind of an invitation to share their feelings about suicide with you. But in order to get there, you have to feel comfortable with the answer. And when the patient says, "Yes, I've been having thoughts of suicide," you need to know what to do with that. And so, and I think that that's kind of where the rubber meets the road for a lot of doctors. And kind of the main thing to know is that first of all, that suicidal patient, if you're not a direct primary care doctor, you're probably supposed to see 20 patients that day. So that patient is gonna wreck your schedule for the day. So
Right.
so just go ahead and accept that your schedule's wrecked. But this is an emergency, and it's the most important patient that you have today. It's as if someone is having an MI right in front of you. That's what's happening when that suicidal patient tells you that, because if they're willing to tell you that, they are likely willing to follow through with it. And if not, they are wanting you to stop them. And that is the interesting piece too, is that most suicide, another little myth that doctors have is that asking someone if they're suicidal will plant the thought in their head, and it'll make them want to die by suicide. It'll make them, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And what I like in that too is, like, I always say, teenagers don't think about sex because we talk about birth control with them. They're already thinking about sex, you know?
Right,
So,
right. Good analogy. Right.
so that you're not going to, plant the thought in a person's head. People are actually very relieved that you asked. People that are suicidal, they're typically like, I'm so glad you asked. At the, when you've kind of gotten to a safe place.